and welcome back to the Shamrock Quilt Studio. Hi guys, it's Kim from the Shamrock Quilt Studio, and I'm here today to give you a tip of how to organize your sewing room, your sewing corner, your studio, whatever you have. Here's a way to keep things just a little bit neater, keep you organized, and save the frustration of always looking for things, because I know that happens to me, and I found a little trick that I hope will work with you as well. I'm talking about project boxes. Now, I love these. I found these at Walmart, I would say 5-6 years ago, and they've been really great. I think they are initially designed maybe for scrapbooking because they're a little bit bigger. Let me get a measurement for you. Let's see. The box itself, it's probably 14.5 by, whoops, wrong side. 14, probably 14.5 by 14.5. Inside the box, it looks like it's about 12.5 by 12.5, which I think is fairly consistent with scrapbook pages. And that's why I think that's what they were designed for. I don't know if I caught them at a really good sale or if I just happened to get there and catch them before they got super expensive, because some of the boxes now are much more expensive. There's no dividers in here, but they do have these nice little latches that really latch and hold things. So if you needed to dump it or turn it on its end, it's not going to come open if you've latched it. And then what I did is I put a piece of chalkboard tape on here so that I can use a chalk marker. And let me see, I just had that out. Yep, here it is. I just use a little chalk marker to mark on it. Now these aren't really great looking labels right now because I was doing it like this. If you turn them up and put the label on it before you fill it up, you can really make it a little bit denser and a little better look. Now, if you had projects that you were always working on, you could use your Cricut or some other method of labeling them. This one just allows me to change it out whenever I need to by dampening it and wiping it off. How do I use these? When I'm working on a project, I try to use this box to store all of the pieces for that project in the box, so that when I sit down to work on it, I can just pull out the box. I might need some thread or something that comes from the cabinet, or scissors. I usually don't keep scissors in this. The only exception to that is when it's something that I'm going to take to another location, either in my home or outside of my home. I would probably put the thread and the scissors in here as well. But you see, these are stackable. I've got 3 different projects here that I'm working on right now. And it got to a point where I couldn't keep track of what fabrics went with what project, because 2 of these both have all white fabric, and it was really difficult keeping track of what was what, and I was concerned that I was going to use the wrong fabric on the wrong project, and then in the end try to put it together and it not match. This has been a lifesaver. So I would recommend that if you can find some boxes like this or something similar to it that you can use as your project boxes, that would be really great. I have some other plastic tubs, small, not the huge tubs, but the smaller tubs that I use for random scraps, and then one tub that I use for medium-sized scraps, something bigger than or equal to the size of a fat quarter and larger. Once it gets beyond a yard, it goes into a yardage container, because that fabric you could use for many other different kinds of projects that required more fabric. So I organize my fabric by yardage, over a yard, medium-sized scraps, which is fat quarter and up to a yard, and then true scraps, which could be anything from like that big to fat quarter size, or it could be something oddly shaped that you know, like a long strip that probably go in scraps, not in medium-sized pieces. Anyway, this has really helped me, and I hope that it would help you too in organizing your projects. I'm going to add a little other clip where I talked about project boxes as well, and transitioning from project boxes into scrap boxes to this video. Hi, I'm just popping in here because I have a little something that I wanted to share with you, and it is kind of an offshoot from a video that I just finished. I was going through my larger scrap bin looking for some fabrics to use with a new project. When I remembered, since I wasn't finding what I'm looking for here, that I have a project box with all of the leftover fabrics from the Miss Kelly, and we had greens that we used in here. So those greens may work on a new project that I'm working on. So I said, maybe is the time. Today is the day. I pulled out the project box for Miss Kelly, and I've decided that I'm not doing any more with this. So I'm not going to need any more of these fabrics. Now, if I was working on something large like a quilt, that I might want to create some throw pillows. I may want to trim my decorative pillows that I have. I may want to prepare a emergency envelope of fabrics in case there was a accident or damage to the quilt. That's one thing. But in this case, I'm not doing any more with this, so it's safe to move this leftover fabrics out so I can do other projects with it. So I've been in the box. The instructions that I had in here that I no longer need are in the trash. There were a few pattern pieces, some of the mylar pieces that I decided to keep, so I put those in a little container. And there are a couple little pieces of fabric in here from some pieces that I cut and made but didn't use. So those are there just for the fun of it, let's say. The greens that I think I can use on the next project went in the box with the fabric for this new project. The fabrics that I can't use will go into this bin here because they can be used on a project in the future. So now what I've done is I've kind of tidied up one of these project boxes and decided what I need right away versus what I need in the future. And then all of the extra materials I can either choose to file away or throw away. And I know I have another set of all of this instructions, and I do have it electronically as well. So those are going in the trash. Now, this becomes the project box for the new project, and that will allow me to keep all of my materials literally and figuratively together, and anytime that I need it, this needs to go in there as well. It's ready to go, and it'll all be in one place. Now, you might think about this and say, well, you could just keep it all stacked up together. And yes, I could, but when you're working on multiple projects, you really need a way to keep from using the fabric from one project on another. And I find that to happen most often with my plain white fabrics, because I will buy a certain amount of fabric, or I will go and buy a mass of fabric during a sale, and I want to make sure that I have as much of that as I need for the project, and don't continuously use it up for other things. For example, I have a piece of, I think it's 4 or 5 yards of a fabric that I'm using now for a block of a month project, and I want to make sure that I have all of that for that. So I took a little piece of paper and wrote on there what project I'm using it for, and I'm pinning it to it. So if I pull that out by accident, at least it will remind me on the little tag what I'm using it for. And that helps me keep my fabric straight a bit. Now scraps, on the other hand, that is an ongoing challenge. I tend to keep the larger pieces of scraps. Let's say anything that is, number one, larger than a fat quarter would definitely go in here. If it's yardage, it doesn't. But anything between, let's say, a half a yard and a small scrap, and probably, here's an example of the smallest thing I might put in here is a little, here's a piece. There was some earlier, I think they're in here, but they're about this big. So bigger than you would use as an individual, let's say, EPP piece. So anything bigger than this is going in this box. Anything smaller than that goes in an actual scrap basket that I use either when I need something very small or I need a leader or an ender for something, or a scrap piece of fabric. And these I like to try to get into a bit of a fold, and sometimes I will try to arrange them a bit by color, but not always. Sometimes they just get in there the best way they can. These are folded a little oddly, so I'm going to have to unfold those and fold them so they'll fit in here. But I think you understand how I do this a bit. And then, of course, when this gets too big, we might need another one, or we might need a larger container. This has a cover, and that's nice, but I think I'm going to start doing this without a cover because I tend to see it and use it more readily if I can see it. And then I have some really fabrics in here that I'm really, really partial to, and always am looking for a little bit of a project to work on. It also allows me to take a quick look and see something like, that's a really cute fabric. And look now, I have several of the blues, and I had a tan here a minute ago, that I could just pull this out and do something super quick, super fast with it, just by flipping through the pieces, the small pieces of fabric. You need to do what works for you, and right now this process is working for me. It may not always, but it is for now. Thanks for joining. I hope this was helpful in some way. If it was, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We're always looking for little tips that might help me and help you, tools that make our quilting journey easier, and projects that we really love and like to do. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time here at the Shamrock Quilt Studio.